So the moment that we have this distinction, and they're not better or worse, just very different, we can begin to see things that we wouldn't have been able to see just with linear causality.
We're moving further and further into this podcast, and it's so good to be back. And just I'm excited to even look further at all of the developments in psychotherapy with you.
Yes, it's amazing how far we've come. We've really covered a lot of ground, dealing with things that are very complex in psychotherapy, and hopefully clarifying some of them.
Yes. Yeah. So just looking back at the previous episodes, we started to really have a look at how important communications theory was, and what a difference it made in psychotherapy. And we looked at how communication is always in a unit, and that we communicate in a unit. And with that, also looking at the difference between linear and circular causality. And once we have a look at circular causality, where A causes B and B causes A, and that it is a circle, and that we can punctuate in that, how that creates interdependence as well.
Mm. You've explained that and clarified it beautifully. Yes. What I would just add is I'm really glad you and we together had emphasized the importance of the communication approach. Ruesch and Bateson had done some remarkable work. Bateson's often recognized for much of his later work, but that communication model and theory being a precursor is just such an important development, and we work with it today. So
It changed the world of psychotherapy.
it did, yes.
Okay. So we also said that the last time, it seems like there's a special quality when things are together versus when they are apart. So I thought is to go into that and understanding that a bit more today.
Yes. All right, so let's look at it. Where we're headed is going all the way back to a philosopher, Aristotle. And Aristotle had said it, and the quote has often been misunderstood. But what he was saying is the whole is something besides the parts. The whole is something besides the parts. In other words, other than. So the whole is other than the parts. And it's often been interpreted as the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, but it's not quite what he was saying. He's saying the whole is besides or other than the sum of the parts. And what he was referring to is this very, very special quality, this emergent quality, that how things are together, the whole, and how those parts behave or function on their own or independently is not the same, not necessarily. So there's a very special quality through relationship, through interaction in the unit, in the system, making up this whole. And there's an account of this, something unique, something seems to emerge, which is not necessarily visible or evident when the parts are looked at on their own or function on their own.
Mm-hmm. Really, there's a distinguishment between how things are on their own, and that it's not better or it's different when they are together.
Yes, you've got it. That's why it's not the whole is not greater than, because it's not better than. The whole is other than the sum of its parts. So there's a place when working therapeutically, understanding the parts on their own, and one is utilizing then and punctuating with linear causality. And then when one looks at a system, one is utilizing then circular causality. And now at the level of the whole, there's some emergent quality that emerges when the whole itself of this system relates, that is in a very special way. So the moment that we have this distinction, and they're not better or worse, just very different, we can begin to see things that we wouldn't have been able to see just with linear causality, or when we're looking at something and understanding interpersonally and in therapy from a systems point of view, from circular causality and looking at wholeness.
Mm-hmm. It's really like we discussed in one of the previous episodes. There's not a right or wrong approach to therapy, but it's different lenses, and in a way, almost stacking up some lenses that complement each other to make more sense, or to make sense of relationships and of people.
Yes.
Like you said, at times it's important to look at someone on their own, but it's different when you look at that same person in relationship to others. It's not better or worse, it's just different.
Yes, very much. And you've explained that in such a valuable way, because when we're working with clients, there are going to be times where we will be looking and working with them individually on their own, and even just considering them independently. And there are other times where we're going to be considering their functioning as part of a system, and how they are relating in turn is impacting, and any change that's going on in the therapy process, how that is going to affect others in their system, and how others in turn impact and maintain aspects of their own relating and functioning. So it just gives us when we have different lenses and we understand what lens we're using, and what is the consequence or the impact of that for describing and observing as a psychotherapist, we can now utilize these lenses, and we can just see more meaningfully. So the moment one is utilizing linear causality, it's going to be a particular arrangement. And one could think of, at times, looking through a telescope, you're going to get a very detailed view in a particular arrangement, in a straight line sequence when looking at the individual. But if we're going to be using wholeness, we're going to be describing both sides of a relationship, both sides of the interaction simultaneously, which is what Bateson was talking about. And he would call that binocular vision, or looking through binoculars, where you describe both sides of the interaction simultaneously, and a beautiful whole emerges. So it's not wrong or right, it's just understanding what's going to be the impact. And the moment one is working and considering a system, one's working with circular causality. And what are the emergent properties? What are the ways of relating that are going to be very meaningful to the client? What could be related to their presenting difficulty, or what they're experiencing difficulty with on account of the nature of relationships, or what can be the change and meaningful developments. But one is looking at a system. And that's really exciting.
It is. It's very exciting, and it's so interesting to look at it like this. And that systems theory, it's one aspect of psychotherapy as well. And a therapist can choose where to punctuate and which lenses to use. So again, it's not right or wrong, but it's really understanding. The more you can understand these different approaches, and how like you say, with the communications theory and the systems theory now, and the person-centered theory, how they can complement each other, it gives a different view, and it's just, again, different, not better,
Yes,
but different.
indeed. So often we are inclined to think that one particular way of looking is better than. And no, the important thing is understanding a frame of reference, understanding a theoretical development or approach, and really getting to grips with it. That's really important. But then understanding that in the light of other approaches, and how do they relate? Because the moment you can understand how two theoretical approaches interact or relate in terms of one's utilization of them, now we're looking at the whole. So as we look at systems, we know that we have parts that connect with larger wholes, and those wholes are themselves parts of even greater wholes. We have the same thing in psychology and psychotherapy, that each of the theoretical approaches in one way represents a part. And how does another part, and how does each of those theoretical orientations or approaches, how do they relate? And the moment we can do that, we've gone to a higher logical level. We're working integratively, and we're going to see so much more, which is thrilling.
It is thrilling.
Yes.
And it makes me think about couples therapy. And that's couples therapy, one way to look at it is through wholeness, and how to facilitate a couple in reaching wholeness, because they are a unit, and all of the parts is the communication theory, how important that can be in couple work as well. But then understanding them as a unit, and as that they're too different, but when they are together, it's also different, and how they relate.
Exactly. And you've described such an important development in the field, because if we just go back, initially when therapists had to deal or work with a couple or a family, the only model that they had at that time was a model and theoretical orientations that generally draw on linear causality. And so it was looking at two individuals or a family as separate individuals, but hold a space. But the moment you introduce systems and understand circular causality and wholeness, now you're looking at a unit. And well, how does this unit relate? And so that's key for couple therapy and family therapy. And hence, you've just described the whole development of couple and family therapy.
Yeah, there's so much richness in this. And yeah, I can imagine that we can go into even more detail with this. But what I also hear is that the wholeness, it's such a understanding systems therapy, and with that a wholeness. And the previous time that we looked at interdependence as well, with the linear versus circular causality, that all forms part of a systems. And understanding systems theory can really, it creates a different frame of reference and a higher order of understanding of units, and that can also be a place where magic happens.
Yes, yes, very much.
So the question is do we talk a lot about relating and interacting? So the question is, is the interactional approach, is that just a different name for systems, the systems approach?
Okay. The answer is quite simply yes and no.
Yo, okay. So it seems like we really need to get into that the next time.
Yes, because there is a yes there, but there also it's a no, because there's certain qualities. It's a way of understanding. It's a nuance in the interactional approach. So it's yes and no, but it needs some careful looking at.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
do that the next time.
Yes.